You good? Here you go. Push it down that way.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And hold that down. Yep, you're good. Yep, you can close that. And then unmute it. Flip that up. There you go. You should be all set. It's interesting. Lisa, I'm sure you might talk a little bit about this, but last night she said, I'm ready to share my testimony anytime. And I said, I'm ready for you to share it anytime you're ready. And I already knew in that moment, at that very second she said that, I knew it was today. I knew it was. But I didn't want to tell her that because I didn't want her to, feel nervous about it or anything like that. But I knew that he'd already spoken to her and said, share your testimony. And she's got another part of it, the time is now type thing. And I knew it was today. I knew what was going on yesterday in my life. I knew that I still had to go home and finish my sermon last night, which is not a problem. That happens a lot after Saturday night prayer, honestly. But I knew that the body needed this encouragement today, because this message that she is going to share from her heart, which is her testimony of God's goodness, is going to bless you, and it is needed. So, Lisa, thank you for being obedient. You good?
Yeah,
all right.
Good.
I'm going to go adjust the sound, okay?
Okay. So I'm going to start at the beginning and tell what happened and why I ended up in the situation that I was. 2.5 years ago, at our church Christmas party, we, several of us were exposed to COVID. And in fact, there were quite a few of us who got COVID at that Christmas party in December of 2021. And it was a bad strain. And Brent and I both got it. And one Tuesday, a young woman from this body called me and said, Lisa, I hate to tell you this, but I've tested positive for COVID. And I'd been with her Sunday night, Monday night. And Brent and I had already planned on that week going and getting tested for COVID because we were getting ready to be with family at Christmas, and his sister-in-law had battled cancer like twice and was still, in the middle of battling that. In fact, she's gone on to be with Jesus now. And we didn't want to expose her or anybody else to start with, but then after getting exposed ourselves, so, a couple of days later, we weren't feeling really bad, but we went and got tested and ended up negative. But that day we both started having symptoms, and we kept having symptoms. They kept getting worse, and after about a week, we were like, we need to go get tested again because we're not getting any better. We continue to get worse. And so we went, and that time we tested positive, but they said, well, it's too late to really do anything. Send us home. And we continued to get worse. That was on a Wednesday, I believe. By Saturday, we were really in bad shape. And Lisa Conway brought an oximeter for us to check our oxygen levels. I wasn't sleeping at night by this time. And I really think it was because, I wasn't getting enough oxygen. And my body knew that I needed to be awake to keep breathing. And so we checked it. Brent was like, 92%. Mine was 82%. And he called his boss, who used to be a nurse, and she said, get to the emergency room. So he drove us because he was in the best shape, not in good shape, but in the best shape. And, they checked us, and they kept me but sent him home. And, they wouldn't let anybody come see me. In fact, that was January the 1st of 2022. And he went home for the next week. continued to be sick, and Elena would text me and say, Lisa, I'm really worried about Brent. All he does is stay in his chair. I've been cooking for him and he won't eat. She was like, I'm like, I don't know what. Anyway, so finally the next Saturday, a week later, after I'd gone into the hospital, he comes back, and my doctor had come in to see me that morning, and I told him that my husband was down in the emergency room again, that he just, was continuing to battle the symptoms and stuff from us getting exposed to COVID. I said, now, if he has to be admitted to the hospital, I want you to put him in my room. Because I hadn't gotten to see him, for a week. And but he went down and checked on Brent, and took him on a little walk, and he said, you don't need to be hospitalized. He gave him, I think, a steroid shot or something, and a prescription for some stuff, and sent him home, and he started getting better. So finally, on January the 16th, they let Brent come visit me. And, I was so glad to finally see somebody besides nurses and doctors and nursing assistants, somebody that cared about me. But even when nobody could come see me, and even, like the nurses didn't stay in there very long, they had to all be suited up, but the nursing assistants would have mercy on me and sometimes stay and talk to me for a little while. But even when I was all alone, I always knew I was never alone. There wasn't a physical presence of the Lord in the room, but I knew in my heart that he was there with me every minute. And, the doctors and nurses were just like, we don't understand, why you're not getting better. Because, people older than me and in a lot worse physical condition, I was probably in the best physical condition I'd ever been in, because I'd retired from working, and we were exercising more. And they were like, we just don't understand, why your lungs are not getting stronger and you're not able to breathe on your own. I mean, I had to most of the time wear a mask that, totally covered my nose and my mouth. And, I needed it that strong just to be able to breathe. And finally, my regular doctor was gone for about a week, and another doctor was filling in for him. And a couple of times she mentioned to me something about, if this doesn't get any better, we're going to have to put you on a vent. She always mentioned, Brent was never there at the time that she mentioned it, but I just didn't respond, because I knew that everybody that I knew of that was in the hospital right then that went on the vent died. I know people that got on a vent and lived, but at that time, everybody that was bad enough that got put on a vent died. And so finally, one day she came in, and Brent was in there, and she brought it up, and he said, well, do we have to make a decision right now? And she said, no, you can take a couple of days. And so, we were praying. Brent sent out a message, and his boss, Kim, organized a prayer vigil for one Saturday outside the hospital. Of course, at this time, they weren't letting people come in. And after he left that night, I remember thinking, just talking to the Lord, and I said, I was pretty miserable. Not being able to breathe, you're pretty miserable. And I just said, Lord, if it's my time, I'm ready to come home. I'm miserable. I'm ready to come home. But I don't really want to leave my husband, my daughters, and my grandkids. I feel like they still need me. So I said, Lord, if you still have a purpose for me on this earth, you're going to have to heal me because I can't live like this. And so I think it was the next day that they had this prayer vigil. And let me tell you, this was a very cold, frigid day in January, and people showed up at the hospital outside to pray for me. I remember Sandy was sick, but she came and sat in her truck and to be a part of the prayer thing. And, I just even after that, people were, constantly messaging me and telling me that they were praying. And I run into people today that I haven't seen, since all this took place, that are amazed at how I am today because they knew I was really bad. They got the messages. And I still run into people that say, I was praying for you. And I'm here today because people prayed and because God still has a reason for me to be here. And I'm so grateful to him. Every day is a gift. Every day. So this was, went in January the 1st. February the 10th, they moved me to Paducah, to a facility where I could get therapy, like physical therapy and occupational therapy, and they could do some things to try to help me get stronger. And so I was there from February the 10th to March the 10th, and then I came home. And it was scary coming home because, I knew how my oxygen just, for me to get up out of the hospital bed to go use a bathroom, somebody had to turn my oxygen up even more than what I was on. Because as soon as I moved, I could even turn over in the bed and my oxygen level would drop. And so I was a little scared about coming home, but Brent, he saw that and he prayed for me and he encouraged me. He said, I'm not going to let anything happen to you. And, during that whole time, he would come almost every day to the hospital and spend time with me. And the board out at the Hill, just said, you do what you can do, but we want you to take care of your wife, and he did. And Jan would come, got to, eventually when I could start having visitors and stuff. Eventually, Jan would come and spend one day with me every week while I was in the hospital, and then even after I came home, so Brent could either, go work some and go see our grandkids. And then, after I came home, I was an invalid. I was still on oxygen 24 hours a day. And, there were other people that came and stayed with me so Brent could go to work. Sandy would come, and Elena and Vera, who live with us, would take care of me sometimes. My mom and my sisters would come. And, I had not to receive that love. I almost didn't have a choice. I had to receive that love, but there's always a choice. But what I want to share today is that you are loved. God loves you unconditionally, and there are other people that he's put in your life that he wants to love you through them. And then when we learn to open up to that love, we can love other people so much more deeply. It's freeing to realize he loves us and other people love us. And because of that, we are here to love other people wholeheartedly, without reservation, not based on their quirks. We all have quirks, in case you didn't know that. You have quirks. I have quirks. But he created us for relationship. And he delights when we love him and when we love others. There is nothing, I don't think, that delights his heart more when he sees us as the body of Christ loving on each other and then loving the lost world. He has a plan and a purpose for each one of us. And I think about, he's no respecter of persons. He's continued over the last 2 years, 2.5, to heal me. I'm still not completely healed, and I don't know if you can hear my voice, but some of you know that I think it was in about May, after I came home from the hospital, I started losing my voice. And it was a process, but it just kept getting worse and worse. And, finally I went to a specialist, and he did this scope thing, and I had a paralyzed vocal cord. And so he said, I hope you don't have a passion for singing, because, you may never be able to. I said, no worries about that. But, it was frustrating to not be able to talk and not be able to sing. But now, my voice has gotten so much stronger in just even the last few months. And now you don't want to sit next to me when I'm singing, because it's still really scratchy and I never know what's going to come out or how it's going to sound. But God is still pleased with my worship. It's not about how I sound. He loves to hear our voices. And when thinking about the songs that we sang this morning, there's so many things that we sang this morning that I just thought, I have a new understanding of those things. And one other thing that I learned was that I used to think when, people were, had physical conditions or something, well, you just need to exercise more. You just need to do this or that, And I was really pretty judgmental, I think, in my thoughts about that kind of thing. But then what I found out was it doesn't matter how much we do. It's all dependent upon him. And I have a new compassion for people who are sick or hurting. And he taught me about love and how to be understanding. I also learned about the value of prayer. And, now when I get those messages on Messenger about somebody needing prayer, I try to stop what I'm doing right then and just say a prayer, because all the people that were praying for me, and people are still praying for me, I'm always hearing them tell me that. But sometimes we need to know what people are praying for us. And I had people that would, send me cards or send me a text or send me a link to a song, just different things, ways to communicate how people were praying for me. But we have some dear friends, John and Betty Collins, who are both teachers over in Central Kentucky. And they got to where every weekday morning on their way to school, they would send me an audio message of their prayer for me that day. And, that just strengthened me to have, to hear somebody praying for me. And so if God puts somebody on your heart, you can text them what you're praying for them for. Sometimes we'll just do a general text about, I'm praying for you, and that's great. But sometimes people need to hear specifically how God's showing you that they're praying for you. And that's going to strengthen their faith. My oldest sister, I had her write this down for me, so I'm just going to pull it up. While I was in the hospital, our dad had died several years before, and she said, she didn't tell me this even right then. It was like several weeks later that she actually told me this, but she said, I'm just going to read what she wrote. She said, when you were in the hospital, I just kept feeling like Dad was talking to me. He kept telling me that you had to keep fighting this virus. He said so many had gone before their time because they got so weak that they just gave up. The Saturday before we got to visit you on Sunday, the feeling was even stronger. I felt like he was reminding me of how I had to keep fighting through the chemo treatments and trying to gain my strength back. And even though it wasn't easy, I usually felt better by getting up and out. I felt like he was telling me to tell you that you had to find the strength to fight back. A few days later, I felt like he was telling me that you were going to make it. It would just take a while for recovery. And, that just really blessed me because my oldest sister and I had never really been close. And I have a twin sister, so we'd always been close, but Susan was 4 years older than us, and so we'd never been that close. But, God takes even bad situations and turns them around for good. And one of the great things to come out of that is my sister Susan and I are a lot closer today because of the time when I was sick that she would bring my mom to come, and they'd come and take care of me so Brent could go to work. And I'm just grateful that God works in every situation, no matter what you're going through right now. He's aware of it, and he has a plan, and he wants to do something in your life. And a lot of times he uses painful situations. We'd rather not go through painful situations. I was really hoping for an instantaneous miracle. I mean, that was what I was counting on, but it didn't happen that way. And God even used the process. He knew ahead of time what I needed, more than what I needed, and that process brought a lot of changes in my life. So if you're going through something today, let him lead you through that process. Pain, we don't like pain. We try to do everything we can to avoid pain. There's physical pain, there's emotional pain, there's relational pain. But God is with us through it all. And he is not ever going to leave us or forsake us. And I experienced that. And I know that my life is different today. Now I see that every day is a gift. And that he has a plan and a purpose. He has one for me, but he has one for all of you too. And his timing is right. On Friday afternoon, after I got home from our ladies' Bible study, I just felt like I was supposed to spend some time that afternoon praying. So I just sat out on our back deck in the shade and just prayed for a while. And I just kept hearing, it is time. And last night during prayer, he started showing me more about what it's time for. You know, it's time for people to be healed. It's time for families to be restored. It's time for people to be set free from things that have kept them in bondage. And he wants to do that in our lives, but we have to just open up. And one thing I'd felt like, I think it was, you know, when I was teaching, I taught elementary for 15 years. Started after our girls had left home and gone away to college. And I think because, you know, I worked 50 to 60 hours a week, and just, you know, it comes a point that you just are putting one foot in front of another. And I feel like that in a way my emotions, I just kind of disconnected from my emotions. And during that time in the hospital, God restored my feelings, my emotions. And now, I mean, before, I've never been much of a crier. Brent always has been the crier. But you know, there were times that I just sometimes I just didn't feel anything. And I knew I should be feeling something, but I just didn't. But during that time when I was set apart from everything I was familiar with, God started doing a restoration work in my emotions. So I just want to encourage you today. If any of the things that I've talked about today have touched you and revealed something that God wants to do in you, then I just ask you, talk to him about it. Ask him what he wants to do in your situation. I know that there are some people right now here this morning that are going through a hard time. And God is totally aware. And he is with you. But he wants you to let this body of believers walk through it with you. You know, I don't know where I would be today. In fact, I don't even know that I'd be alive if I hadn't had Brent there with me almost every day at the hospital. If I hadn't had other people come and stay with me, because I think I would have given up, because it was, I mean, just eating was a chore. And a little while after I would eat each time, just all the work, you know, who thought digesting your food was a lot of work? But I found out when you're sick, digesting your food is a lot of work. And I had to make myself eat, because I knew I was going to feel terrible afterwards. But because people love me, I wanted to live. And so I just ask you, I just feel like right now we need to pray. And I want to ask you, if you are struggling with something today, I want to ask you to just ask God what to do about it. What's the next step you need to take? And if you need to come and have anybody pray with you, I know there's people that'll be up here to pray for you. And so let's just pray. Father, I just thank you for your unfailing love, and that it's true that you never leave us or forsake us. And you are well able to meet our needs, whatever they are. And you do it in your perfect timing. So, Lord, I pray right now for my brothers and sisters who are struggling. I ask God, show them their next step. Show them that you have not forgotten them, that you have not left them alone, and that you are here to work on their behalf. You want to come play something?
Yeah, I'll say, if you need prayer today, be a good day for it. If you're struggling, just need a touch from God, I know Lisa will be glad to pray for you. I will. There's others here that will too. But if you need prayer today, you can just come up here at any point. Or just Brent can play for the next few minutes and we can pray for you.